Hello, everyone, and welcome. You have chosen the Scenic City Sports Podcast, your destination for local sports news, be it high school, be it professional, or whether you just want to listen to us ramble on about professional wrestling or old Seinfeld quotes or crazy movies that we all like. Welcome to the Scenic City Sports Podcast, brought to you by the fine folks at Gary Thacker Insurance over at 2382 Battlefield Parkway. You can reach them at 706-866-8283. Also, the Chattanooga Flower Market, 8016 East Brainerd Road, 423-899-2440. Phil's Primetime Pizza down in beautiful Chickamauga, Georgia, 122 Gordon Street. That's 706-375-4448. Our good friend Greg Payne, host of Restricted to the Dugout with Greg Payne and the Payne Mortgage Team. You can reach them at 423-645-9404 for all of your mortgage needs. And finally, Choo Choo Barbecue, who make it possible for us to bring you the scoreboard on Friday nights. The Choo Choo Barbecue of Chickamauga scoreboard. You can reach them at 12960 U.S. Highway 27 at 706-375-7675. And as Ringo Rob likes to say, you don't know Q until you know Choo Choo. We also want to say a special thank you to Matthew Mays and the good friends and members of Jupiter Coyote, one of our favorite bands, and they provide the music for the show. Those guys have always been great to us, and we hope you guys will reach out and try to check out their music as well. So sit back and relax and hold on, and we'll see where we get to. And welcome everybody to this Thursday edition of the Scenic City Sports Podcast, brought to you by the fine folks over at Gary Thacker Insurance and all of our all-star sponsors. Rusty, Scott, and Rob live here from Studio X, joining you guys, as I said, on this nasty, dreary day. Rob and I were just saying a minute ago, when's the last time we could think of that it had rained this many days in a row with a forecast of raining as many more in a row as it's supposed to? And I'm pretty sure I saw some animals out in the street lined up, but I wasn't sure where they were headed.
Well, I'm going to buy my Mariners tickets or my Seahawks tickets. Because I thought
You're
maybe
cracking tickets.
Relocated to Seattle. Now I know what those folks have to go through on a regular basis. But surely to goodness, things will change around here in Chattanooga.
Well, guys, this past weekend we had the Blue Cross Bowl live here in the home city of Blue Cross, Tennessee, of Chattanooga. We have two state champions from the local area that come out of that. Tyner with their first state championship since 1997.
25.
Baylor with their first state championship in
49 years. I thought it was 50, but they say it's 49. And I said this many times. I mean, if you were just average Joe off the streets, but you had an idea of, who's pretty good around town, and somebody said, has it been 50 years since Baylor won a state championship?
I was about to look at you. I was literally about to look at Scott and be like, "Hey, is that right?" Because I mean,
it don't sound right.
No, it does not. Because
John Hanna was on the team.
God,
1973.
Well, because I mean, every year
they played for it.
They are around the hunt.
They're always. I mean,
they played.
Yeah, I mean that's.
And imagine all the banners that they have hung over there, Scott. And all the sports that they have played, and not to have that in 50
They
years.
won that ESPN thing.
Yeah.
What was it, 10, 12 years ago? They won the Titletown USA thing or whatever that ESPN did. They were the number one ranked high school in America. Because, hell, you just take the golf program over there alone. And the last 20 years, that golf program's won something like 15 or 16 state championships on the boys' side, and another 10 or 15, 20 on the girls' side. I mean, it's insane what they do.
And then their last several springs,
baseball, softball.
But if again,
soccer,
for true, false, and $10,000.
Oh, I would have said false all day long.
Thought it.
No,
it don't seem normal.
No, it does not. It just doesn't.
Because they've had so many good coaches and players over there. To say that it's been that long?
Yeah, that's really surprising. Very surprising.
Tyner, whew.
Well, it was a good ball game.
Sigh of relief.
Yeah, both of them were actually great ball games.
And we knew the Baylor NBA game would be a good game.
I thought that Baylor NBA game would be like that.
Because Tyner, I thought, would probably just go in there and probably pull away and win by about 3 or 4 scores.
I will not name our very prominent source that told me this probably better than a week before that. He thought that Tyner would be playing a team very similar to what they'd been running roughshod through. But even he was somewhat scratching his head and thought, they were a good football team.
Yes, they were.
They were, and they looked. And what I said to somebody on the sideline, I said, "Man, they look extremely prepared for Tyner early. They were like they were defending what they thought Tyner was going to do." And again, they both schools. Scott fell down by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
Baylor as well.
Yeah.
And so they were fun, entertaining ball games, well played ball games. Yes, the NBA Baylor game. It's almost what I thought it would be.
Yeah, last possession was probably going to win. Although Baylor's defense stood up in the second half and finally played some defense. Nobody. It seems like
nobody in
that entire region plays any defense.
Well,
at times.
And I saw
especially the offenses are so good.
And I saw Coach Weems coming down out of the stands as at halftime, who assists on the defensive side, and he really is a good defensive mind. I said, Coach, you got to get them 2 stops. I said, you get them 2 stops in the second half, they win that football game. Well, they came out and got 3 stops, and that really, really, really allowed Baylor's offense to start meaning something on the scoreboard instead of chasing the scoreboard. Yeah. So congratulations to the Red Raiders and all they did. But then again, Scott, I'm going to tell you something. NBA, Baylor, and even Big Blue and McCallie. I mean, you could put them in a jug and
Brentwood
shake them up.
too.
They were close.
Those 4, I've said it for weeks. They're so similar. They're so.
McCallie goes for 2 for the win and don't get it. So
yeah,
hey, we know what that's
one
like.
play. I mean, Baylor was a half a yard away from not making it.
Yep. And a coaching change up there as well. I haven't spoke to my source Steve Wade to ask him anything about any of that. But
Brentwood's coach is leaving. Going back to Texas, and not sure who they're going to get for that job. I'm sure they'll probably struggle to find people to come up there and take that job. There's a lot of pressure. Let's be honest.
Had a conversation with somebody that really knows,
who wouldn't want
really knows what he's talking about, especially inside that league. And it was a Baylor source that he spoke with me about that job and where some of the fallacies that have taken place lately in what they were concerned about. Because you know what? Sometimes you're not paying attention to those younger groups that are coming, and all of a sudden they don't look good. Well, that's going to be your varsity someday. Well,
and here's the problem, too, that Brentwood's got. There's another team on the block that's getting the recruits now. And it's a team they're going to have to deal with next year. And it's a team who's also got a coaching vacancy that has come up.
Well, and some of my sources out of Nashville said that, hey, they've been losing kids to that school anyway. Mm-hmm. So you got to come in there and you got to put a stoppage to that.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, yes, who wouldn't want the Brentwood Academy job? It's one of the most glamorous positions in the state.
But different.
How much pressure is that coach going to be under to get the recruits in there and to win ball games when you've got other options in Nashville now?
Well, if you remember, and this goes back in time, but Stunt Martin, encouraged Ralph Potter not to take that job from a standpoint of what you were walking into.
Yeah.
Now, Ralph went up there, did a good job, but you got to win state championships to impress them.
Carlton Flat's name is always going to be
and Carlton Flat, what I understand, even back in those days, still hung around.
Oh yeah,
still hung around.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, Ralph learned from that secret up there, that secret sauce, and he brought it back to Chattanooga.
And let me also announce, because this just came down here an hour or two ago, the 2022 Tennessee Titans Mr. Football Award winners have been released, have been announced.
Okay.
And Josh Jackson of Tyner.
Josh Jackson.
He is your Class 2 Division I Mr. Football Award winner.
We had a lot of numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Had a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
How about our boy from Baylor?
Was a finalist, did not get the award.
Class act kid, good kid to talk to, good kid to watch play.
Great job on all those interviews.
Yeah, well, he that kids. I can't take anything away from any of those interviews. They were all fun to do, and all the coaches and players did an amazing job. But 34 from Baylor there, he's a good kid. He really is. I was pulling for him.
Caleb Hampton?
Yep, he's a good ball player. And both teams kind of took over, Tyner as well, took over with their running game. When they got away from being a little more pass happy, because actually both teams threw the ball a lot in the first half and trailed at halftime. And both teams come out and established the run and also established a stingier defense.
It's amazing. I've said it for years, and everybody just, I guess wants to ignore the fact. But if you run the ball, I've said it for years. You can put Super Bowl in there, you can put college, you can put high school, whatever. If you can run the football, if you can stop the run, and if your quarterback will just manage the game and not make mistakes,
I mean, you can win. Well, you're 70% down the road.
Yeah,
and we both know that
especially in the winter,
it takes big plays sometimes at different levels of the passing game, but you can't just do it sometimes and ignore a running game.
Right.
And both of those teams, I think, came out and won state championships, one with the ability to slow the others one down defensively, and they established their own run game.
Yeah. Tennessee Vols this year. Yes, they threw the ball all over the place, but they ran the ball when they had to run it. And late in the game, second half, they ran the ball. Top 10 rushing defense.
Mm-hmm.
Smart quarterback. Didn't make mistakes.
Well, and just to hype over on the Vols, when the Vols were struggling, me and used to compensate than others. Man, they can't run the football.
Offensive line.
Can't run the football.
Fix the offensive line, you fix Tennessee football. I've said it for years. Here's the other award winners, just if you're interested. Division I Class 1A is Jackson Cassidy of McKenzie. Class 3A, Alcoa's Lance Williams. Class 4A was Marcellus Jackson of Fulton. Class 5A was Deshaun Bishop of Carnes. That kid's a player if you haven't seen him play. Class 6A, I'm hesitating so I don't mispronounce the name. Could be Aaron. I'm guessing that's Aaron, although it's Arion.
Aaron.
I'm going to say Aaron.
Okay, Aaron.
Aaron Carter of Smyrna.
You going to struggle with the last name too?
No, I think I've got Carter. Class A Division II DJ Merriweather of Clarksville Academy. Division II Class 2A Junior Sherrill, Maurice Junior Sherrill of Lipscomb Academy, and then Marcel Reed, quarterback from Montgomery Bell Academy, is your winner in Class 3A. Kicker of the year was Oziel Hernandez of Germantown.
And so we sneak out of there with one more award in Josh Jackson of the Tyner Ram Trade.
Yeah.
And you go back on Scenic City Sports over the last 3 weeks or so, and you can see a couple interviews I had there with him. And what they were doing early in that game was what they were doing early the last few games, was just throwing the ball around, pass and catch with such ease. But they weren't having that luck with this team early, and I thought that team seems to be extremely prepared
they were.
for Tyner early. Now, I think Tyner's athletes took over, and I think them establishing a run game, and that Tyner team is, we talked about seven shutouts on the year, but they fell down 15-0. That's something that I'm not sure they had done all year.
And Riverside had some key penalties. Some key, costly penalties that went against them. Some were of their own doing. Some, like holding. You can call holding on every single play. But they got some calls against them at some just terrible moments.
And Tyner had one going in at half that allowed a field goal to be kicked that I don't think was the call that it was made. Nobody there does.
I think you're right about that one too. But I don't know if you got to hear the broadcast or not from where you were.
No.
But they were talking about Josh Jackson, how he became the quarterback, how he had basically quit football, and they got him to come back out, and Coach Chandler was like, I got a 6'4" kid, 230, be defensive end. And apparently there was something, they were in the gym one day, and he told him, he said he didn't think he could throw a ball, something, or whatever, and the kid's like, yeah, I can show you, and he just flings it, and next thing you know, he's the quarterback.
And he does have a big arm, and he does have a big stature about him, so he does look the part, and
there's a lot of things you can teach as a quarterback. 6'4", 230 ain't one of them.
And he's not shy to speak in front of a mic. He enjoys doing that, and I enjoy listening to him.
There's instinct to things, though. I mean, you want to see whether a kid is meant to play quarterback or not. Throw them in a bad situation, a fumble, a dropped snap, something like that, and see what happens. There are some kids that you can put them in that situation that have the wherewithal to look around and realize, do I have a second to just pick this up and try to make a play, or do I just fall on it? And there's others that just are going to fall on it no matter what.
Well, I didn't tell the young man this, but I was sitting there thinking, and he was very happy that they won the state championship, and he started coming out with a little bit. Some folks doubted me, didn't think I could do this, didn't think I could do that, but I showed him. I thought, I didn't know I was interviewing Muhammad Ali here. but and he wouldn't even know that Muhammad Ali said stuff like that. But he sounded the part. But congratulations to him again, Mr. Football. That's big. We've had some in town that's won that. Had some in town we thought would win that and not got it.
Yeah.
And the one you just said there, the NBA quarterback. From last year to this year, and he was being recruited by just about everybody in the SEC, but I was scratching my head about him at quarterback. From what do y'all see there? He's filled out a little bit more, but the one thing he does have, well, there's more than one thing. One, he's very elusive, could be the fastest kid on the field, but he does have a shotgun of an arm. When you can look those out throws that are thrown out there on the dime and know that what does the average quarterback look like when they throw that in this area, and it doesn't look like that. So
he doesn't look like, size-wise, the type of quarterback that Kiffin's been used to at Ole Miss, because I think that's where he's going, is Ole Miss. But he's darn sure got the arm strength and the elusiveness. So we'll see if he ends up there. And he's a good enough athlete. They can move him somewhere else if they need to. But I think
probably so. And that's when I saw him last year. That's exactly what I thought. He's an athlete. You'll find a place to put him. He won't play. Yeah. He may not play quarterback. But then I saw more out of him this year at that position.
So we're going to, I guess, switch over here to basketball and wrestling pretty soon. But before we get there, let's take a look at next year. Who's the teams coming back?
Well,
who should be number one in our poll going into next year?
Until people knock them off coming back next year, the two things that I know McCallie and Baylor lose some very good pieces, but when do they not lose some good pieces? But what they both bring back is good quarterback. Mm-hmm. And so that's a nice starting point, ain't it?
Yeah.
That's a very nice starting point. In fact, if both of those two are in the discussion of Mr. Football, it won't surprise me, and I say that right now. They both could have those kind of numbers. Now, Tyner, on the other hand, goes up to 3A and loses 21 seniors.
Yeah.
That is a challenge at every level in the area.
Yeah, and you don't think it'd be that big of a jump in Tennessee from 2A to 3A.
But 21 seniors leaving
the level of competition is going to increase.
But even staying at 2A and losing 21 seniors, you feel that.
That's
a feeling number.
Tough. It's tough at just about any classification.
But
unless you're like 6A, 7A.
Yeah, if you're Oakland losing 21, you expect to.
Because you probably got 21 coming in or something like that. But, man, if your enrollment's about 1,400 or less, and you lose 21 seniors, especially ones that are going to start that much.
And they're going to play all the time. So congratulations to Tyner, and they'll be doing a lot of, in the spring, saying, can you play this position? Can you play that position? They'll be looking for different, and they got to replace the Mr. Football quarterback. Now, I don't know what they got for that situation. Otherwise, teams that, it's always easy to look at the traditional teams that stay good will probably come back and still have that. But who's that dark horse that changes and pops into it? I'm not sure who that is. Down here in North Georgia, Heritage lost a lot of seniors, right? Mm-hmm. And it was one of their better teams.
Yeah. Heritage is going to be replacing quarterback, and they're going to be replacing running back. And they got kids, in the pipeline that are have gotten some action this year and are going to be pretty good. But they've got a lot to replace.
Who in your mind down here in North Georgia brings back? Who doesn't get beat up on graduation and thinking that is a step back?
I'll tell you a team that I think that is losing some players that I still think is going to be good, depending on the quarterback situation. That's Ringo. I think Ringo has built up its program now to a point. And look, the kid had come in last year at quarterback, and then he had some health issues, I think, with his hip. If he's ready to go, I think they're going to be just fine. They're going to lose Peyton Williams. That's 1,000-yard rusher they're going to lose. But they didn't have the kid at quarterback this past season. They plugged Ross Norman in there, and Ross had a great season, got him to the playoffs. But I think that team is set up. They had a couple of kids got injured last year. They're going to be back. Got some good offensive linemen. They're going to be back.
You think there's enough that stays in the circle that they can just keep finding somebody to take the place of somebody that left?
Yeah, okay. I think they do. I think they've got good enough younger kids that are moving up. Some that have already been there and have come in there and gotten some action. Last season, this past season, I think they're going to be just fine. Well, and when you look at the fact that how much is Adairsville losing? Adairsville's losing a ton. Kahula Creek's losing a 4-year starting quarterback and several other people that have been key parts of that turnaround. That region's going to look entirely different next year, just because it's not going to be as top heavy. I think Bremen will be probably a little bit better, and they finished 4th this year. But
what did Gordon Lee lose this year?
Gordon Lee is losing the athlete of the year in Nate Dunphy. They're losing their other running back. They're losing the quarterback.
Because there's some skill positions walking out the door.
Some skill positions they're going to be having to replace. But they've also got a good young group that's coming up. And they may not have all the experience yet. They still may be another year or two away.
Well, yeah,
but they're coming. They're going to be pretty good.
I know you, and I've heard Nathan and some others, brag on the 8th grade bunch, and then they're getting there as freshmen. But freshmen don't usually make impacts on varsity football teams.
But
as a group,
at a small school like Gordon Lee,
well, now they still
who's
have
playing
to play
3A. They might, and they've had a couple kids this year stepped up. Peyton Gross being one of them, was one of their leading tacklers. He was a freshman this year, I believe. So they've got the kids, and we'll see who they plug in for next year. Lafayette's got, they're kind of a similar situation. They're losing some valuable players, but they've got some good young talent coming back. So, North Georgia.
Watch the boys on the hill before it's over with.
Yeah. Boys on the hill. That's what y'all do by now.
I'm going to sit over here and be quiet because I don't want to be accused of being a homer, because obviously I am, and I see a lot of these kids in the hallway. But the early, depending on who you listen to, next year you're going to have a lot of the same team back. You're going to have them in the second year of Coach Bryant's offense. If you'd have had him. If this was year 2 with the talent they had this year, it would have been a whole lot different. If you look at the way Lakeview played at the first of the season versus the way they finished the season, and they lost a couple of big ones down the stretch, but at the same time, they made leaps and bounds where they were going, and it's all going to key on who the man behind the line is, who's taking those snaps, because the skill positions are there. Yeah. Jared Mitchell will be a sophomore, and he's already right now 6'2"-ish, and he ain't done growing. And, I mean, there's some boys on that offensive line that are freshmen that are as big as we are right now.
In the Ringo game, one of the things that stuck out the most, and I hadn't seen Lakeview all year, was they had a quality size on their offensive line.
Yep,
right?
and they're young.
They weren't little offensive.
There's some youngsters out there, too.
There's some youngsters. Excuse me.
Now, they're graduating a couple big old boys. I mean, Josh McNabb, obviously that's a big
You're
loss.
always going to be doing that. Did he have an older brother?
I think so.
That name sounds familiar.
That's the thing for me next year is how much of that offensive line...
Or Justin McNabb. I'm sorry, Justin's. Do what?
How much is that offensive line going to improve? Because I think that was the thing that kind of held them back for most of the year is because they were having to teach some kids how they do things and stuff like that.
Pass block.
You've got... I can think of 3 freshmen right now off the top of my head that I can't name them all because I don't teach freshmen, so I don't see them every day. But there's 2 or 3 freshmen that are going to. A coach even pointed them out walking by and said, "You see them 3 right there? Them's going to be some players for me down the road." They've got. Give the coaching staff up there credit. They're out in the hallways right now trying to find, hey, why ain't you out there playing football with us? Kid your size, you ought to be, that's what you got to do. I mean, we have athletes in our hallway. You look at what Brent Bowman did this year, coming back out and playing tight end the way he did. I mean, you look at Brent and you think, what could that kid have done with 4 years of football in high school? You look at Dylan Blankenship and you wonder, what could Dylan Blankenship have done 4 years as a starter in high school? It's if he hadn't got hurt.
Yeah.
So they're going to be fine.
And the other team from this area that we really haven't talked about yet is Ridgeland, who didn't win a game this year, but
they were obviously young,
very, very young, and the very few seniors that they had were valuable to them. Was pretty much most of their offense this year. But they had a freshman running back this year. They had a sophomore defensive back. They've got a group of linebackers. Not surprisingly, Craig Pritchett's the head coach. But when you got Kane Brown's a sophomore, Braylon Pritchett, his son, who's a sophomore, and you got those other guys, all of them are going to be back. That defense next year for Ridgeland could be pretty good. I'm not going to say they're going to be a great defense. They could be pretty good. And there were a lot of games this year for Ridgeland. The North Murray game, they were like a touchdown down at halftime. And you could say that about 3 or 4 different times this year for Ridgeland. Against teams that were supposed to be better than them. They were right there with them at halftime. Either tied or just there, and then it just kind of fell off.
Well, it's Coach Pritchard's first year, and he obviously didn't inherit a really overly talented group. But we saw this a few years ago in Robert Aiken's team when it went on an 0-10, and it would have, again, let me pre-reference that team would have never gone 0-10 had those seniors stayed and played for them. Yes, there was some injuries, but there were some people I think that took shortcuts and went out, and he's forced to sit there and pay a bunch of kids that were supposed to be playing on Monday afternoon in a JV game. Mm-hmm. And so they took their lumps with that. Then what happened?
5-5
to 10-2, right?
10-2 to making the playoffs again. So don't give up on this Ridgeland bunch. They're young, but they're excited about what's going on over there. They're excited to be playing football, and they've got some players there already.
Well, and again,
they just got to get some more experience.
And never underestimate what the off season and what you do with that off season means. If you just try to get by, but if you go in there and bust your butt in that weight room and do the things you're supposed to do, and then when the spring comes around,
this might be the most important off season Ridgeland's had in 20 years or more. Honestly, because if they make the games that they're probably expected to make this offseason, I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs next year, but with everybody losing
players,
key players, there's a ton of talent that's graduating. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if Ridgeland was fighting for a 4th spot when it's all said and done next year.
Well, we saw a Ringo Tiger team pull that same situation off just a few years back. And again, like I said, we got a coaching change up in Cleveland. That is a school that always has as good athletes as a lot of schools have up there.
Mm-hmm.
Where else we got coaching changes at, Scott?
I'm thinking.
That's a good thing if we don't have that many coaching changes.
Yeah, I don't think
we had some that kind of come on late last year. We thought we would get them early, like by Christmas, and then they started happening, in the spring.
Do we have any? I can't think of.
I was going to say
Except
I
for
couldn't think
Cleveland,
of
I
any
can't
off
think
the
of
top of my head.
So Cleveland.
As far as we know, Cleveland's it right now.
Let's change gears and talk about the Final Four and who's there and maybe who's not.
Final Four.
Football.
Oh, college football.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about Georgia high school.
Oh, well.
But generally, Final Four. They're in the final, and those will be on Georgia Public Television. By the way, you can stream that. You can watch it Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Cedartown plays. Carrollton plays. That Carrollton game will be the last one. It'll be Saturday night about 7, 8 o'clock.
And I saw that Rome got beat out of it.
That Langston Hughes team. I mean, when's the last time Rome lost 42-3?
I saw that score and I thought, wow.
Everybody all year had been talking about, and I've been reading that Langston Hughes had a bunch of grown men on that football team. I finally got to see him.
Well, I didn't see
on
it, but
TV.
I saw that score and I thought,
yeah,
you understood why people were calling them grown men.
Yeah, that's a team.
That ain't another one of those transfer schools where 7 or 8 people just show up, are they?
There's a lot of schools down there that have kids show up. I don't know, but I just know they're awfully good.
Well, you knew it a few years ago. You knew all of them going back home.
Now, Class 3A, Cedar Grove and Sandy Creek is a rematch of a region game that was played earlier this year. So,
and is that that region?
Yes, that region had 3 of the top 4 in the state.
What bad luck
2 years
that was. I mean, I like the fact that Georgia rotates. I do, but you do roll the dice on which region you get that time.
And as I said, everybody wonders why did Bremen want to kind of come here in this region when they're 100 miles away? That's why. That's the region they were going to be in, and I don't blame them a bit.
Okay.
Final Four, college football playoff. Do we have the right 4 teams in there to start with?
I don't know that we got the best 4. But I heard somebody say this the other day, and they said it the same way. I don't know that that's truly the best 4, but he said that is the right 4.
Most deserving.
Yeah, and again, let me use you a good example. This is what he said. If Alabama's in that game, in that foursome, they're not an underdog, but to yet possibly Georgia.
All right.
So no, they're not in it, but that's still what Vegas would say if they were there. That's who they would be, the favorite.
The problem for me this year,
and they might even be the favorite in the Georgia game.
I think there's 3 teams in there that should be there, but there's no way you don't have 3 teams in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
You had to put somebody else in there. I think TCU deserved to be in there. They lost 1 game by 3 points in overtime on a neutral field after a boneheaded decision by their coach. I'm sorry, it's overtime, it's 4th and goal. I know some people say, I like the... No, it's points. If you miss the field goal, that's one thing. But at least you had a chance to get 3 points. Now you don't score, and now you only need... I think I was looking for that.
They lost to Kansas State, though, man.
Kansas State is pretty darn good.
Okay.
So who's your team that if that doesn't deserve to be there?
Ohio State.
Ohio State. By the way, that they took the thumping at home.
They lost by 3 touchdowns at home, granted, against their biggest rival, who was ranked top 5 in the country. But how many quality wins do they have all year? Who do they beat? Notre Dame? Is that their best win? Have you looked at their schedule and stuff? I mean, they didn't play exactly murderer's row, and they struggle.
But with the
it.
exception of Georgia, you can make that same damn argument for the other 3 teams in the top 4.
And let me ask you a question. We already have heard rumors that the Ohio State fan base want him gone. He's something like 45-5,
yes,
and you want him to go. So I mean, who is 46-4 coach that you do want?
He's being compared to John Cooper. That's
well, we know, and
that's not good if you're Ohio
Stump
State.
used to say this all the time about the local teams. You know, you got to beat your rivalries, whether it's Baylor McCallie, whether it's Ringo Lakeview, whatever it was. He always talked about that. And here they've dropped the back to back to the team that they circle and talk about for, you know,
and the coach in Jordan Harbaugh that Michigan was trying to get rid of 2 years ago.
And again, Michigan couldn't figure Ohio State out prior to that, and now all of a sudden that. But I mean, when you run off 45-5, I mean, really, what's the next guy? Who's the next guy? Is he 46-4, 47-3 guy? I mean, what makes you happy with him?
Let's say, who are you going to get? And I've heard Urban Meyer's name brought up again.
Well,
we'll take Urban Meyer back.
I did hear the Titans guy,
Mike Vrabel.
I sure did.
I don't think Vrabel's going anywhere.
Well, I don't know that he is or he isn't, but I did hear his name,
especially after events of the last 48 hours. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Well,
I won't say anything else, but I don't think he's going anywhere.
It might go up.
You know, I hear this same, and I'm. This is a family show, so I'm not going to use the language that I really want to use right now. But you know, I hear this same crap every time about, you know, and I get it. You got ESPN, and you got to sell 24 hours of programming, and you got to this, that, or the other. But I'm telling you right now, you take those other 3 teams and put them on one side, and you give me Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee on the other side, and tell me which 3 are going to be standing when it's over with. Plain and simple. You can split hairs all day long that you want to about quality wins and all that horse crap. Those 3 SEC teams play better teams week in and week out than anybody else in the country, and none of those other 3 teams can even stand on the field with them. And Michigan found that crap out last year,
and that is true.
When Georgia absolutely trucked them in the semifinals,
and that is true. But you know, you take that Ohio State guy. The only way he can redeem himself, well, there's 2 redemptions. One, if he was to upset Georgia, that'd be a big sweat off his brow. But if he turns right around and
loses to Michigan,
he might be gone.
Yeah. And I mean,
leave him at the airport like he did Kiffin at USC.
You know, I get it. You don't want a Michigan-Ohio State rematch as a semifinal matchup.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like Georgia got the worst draw.
Oh, they did.
As the defending national champ.
Just trying to stay out of that scenario.
How do you not solve that crap in the semis? And, I mean, I know that you don't want to see those 2 teams play each other in back-to-back games. I get it.
I agree with that.
They want to save Ohio State and Michigan in case there's a rematch.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a huge
that's
rivalry.
What they're thinking.
And if TCU goes out there and they are one of those teams that, like Michigan State a few years back.
Where do you see TCU being any better than Cincinnati of last year?
Nowhere.
You see them on the same platform?
They're very similar. TCU, you know, has won a bunch of very close games this year.
It's a small school,
and they've got some good players. I just don't see them, and they might even beat Michigan. It's very possible they could beat Michigan. They're not beating one of the other 2 teams.
But Michigan's best backs went out, you know, so that.
But I think they matched up Ohio State with Georgia simply because if Michigan TCU turns out to be not so good of a ball game, then we've got 2 brand name powers that we can face off against each other, and we'll get the ratings that way.
Well, yes, but I also think I really think it was because, one, there's the potential Michigan Ohio State, But at the same token, I have to agree with Rusty. Georgia takes that situation for the sake of another conference. They should have been playing TCU. I know why they did it too. I know why they did
I think if you're a number 1 seed in a 4-team tournament, you're supposed to play the team that's seeded number 4, the 4th best team. And I really think that's TCU in this case. But again, you don't want to match up Ohio State and Michigan because they just played. Mm-hmm. Save that one in case somebody.
Well, they did this a few years ago with
Georgia and Alabama.
Alabama.
They weren't going to match them up again.
And I'm going to tell you this, and
I'm pulling for TCU.
And you know I'm not an Alabama fan, but I'm not so sure that if Alabama hadn't gotten in there as the 4th seed, that some Vegas wouldn't have them most likely to win it.
There would have been better odds than TCU winning. Now I don't think
or Ohio State.
I don't think they would have been a favorite against Georgia. But it wouldn't be.
But those odds would have been set before all that.
I mean, but it wouldn't be. The odds wouldn't be that long either.
It still gets back to the whole thing of you take a coach like Nick Saban and you give him a month to prepare for an opponent and see what he does. If Alabama walks in there as number 4, they're making the national championship game. Whether they win or lose it, they're going to make the game. Because if Saban's got a month to prepare for Michigan, Ohio State, or TCU, or it would have been probably Michigan or Ohio State, if he's got a month to prepare for any of them, it's just like giving Kirby a month to prepare for them too. They're going to kick the living crap out of both of those teams, and the SEC will decide it again.
And here's something else, and we see this, and we've been seeing this for years in these non-playoff games, kids opting out for NFL. Now we got them opting out for transfer portal. Yeah. So you don't even know, Rusty, whether the team that you saw play all year is going to get in the playoffs, and that's the team that's going to be out there playing, because we decided to do something different.
All right. You brought it. You just said you just said transfer portal, and we got about 20 or so minutes left, and so
that's
I want
the secret word today on You Bet Your Life.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to bring this up. So I was sitting at school the other day, and in one of our usual football talks, we discussed Coach Prime and his opening remarks to the team at Colorado.
You'll have to tell me because I didn't hear it.
Well, it was just basically to the effects of
I'm bringing guys with me, and you might go ahead and get in the portal.
Yeah, if you think you need to get in the portal, you need to go ahead and do it now. And
okay.
I thought that was a joke until I saw the conference myself.
So he basically said, I got people with me.
I'm bringing luggage with me.
Somebody said, well, that's a recruiting violation, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, it's not a recruiting.
Anymore.
No, it's not a recruiting violation. With name, image, likeness, all that, you take a lot of that crap out of play. And then it got into, well, if he don't find somebody, is he going to find coaches good enough to make him better, so to speak? Is he going to find good enough coaches to go out there and look well? Well, first of all, Deion Sanders, I don't think people realize what a football IQ that man possesses.
First of all, who's Colorado? What league they're in?
They're in the Big 12. Or Pac-12, yeah, Pac-12.
With USC leaving.
Yeah.
And UCLA leaving.
So,
they can potentially...
So there's not as many schools for him to climb above now.
Right.
Those two leaving.
But they did go 1-11 this past
year. But let me
they
give you...
Good before. Been a while.
So here's the question that you got to ask. Is Deion angling for top level of college football because he wants to be that shaper of young men? Or is Deion trying to put together as good a coaching resume as he can put together to possibly get a shot in the NFL? Because here's my thing. You're talking about a guy that has an unbelievable relationship with Nike and has had for years. He has been a loyal Nike guy from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Well, it stands to reason if he goes out there in the Pac-12, and let's say Colorado goes out there 2-3 seasons in a row and he wins 6-7 games first year, 8 games second year, maybe 9 or 10 third year, bowl eligible all 3 years.
If you're going to flip the roster, you got a shot at it if he means what he says.
That's what I'm saying.
They're losing because they got a bad roster.
he's going to be able to recruit no matter where he goes because he is Deion Sanders.
I agree with that. He might be a little bit out of his backyard.
But
so
my thinking on it all is what happens when Colorado goes out there for 3 or 4 years and plays well. How long is it going to be before the Nike school makes a phone call?
That's cool. Well,
and Deion Sanders, as flashy as he is, with a school as flashy as Oregon, is that not a match made in heaven? I mean, Coach Prime at the helm of, 57 different combinations of uniforms or whatever? I mean...
Well, that would be probably a good match, too.
Did you see the video of him talking to the kids at Jackson State?
Yes.
And I believe something to the effect, his quote was, if you're not trying to elevate yourself in this job, basically that's the goal of a coach. To come in, elevate this program, move on to another program, elevate that program. He said, if you're not trying to elevate yourself in this position, then, why do you do it?
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think he's going to go to Colorado and decide, I'm going to retire here.
No.
I think he's looking, this is the next step.
Yeah. But his question was the next step NFL? I think just in guessing, the next step would not be that.
I don't think he has any desire to coach the NFL, honestly.
Here's
I think if the opportunity comes up, though, he'll
Miami, I don't know.
With the talent that's in South Florida, all he's got to do is just recruit.
With him having been an FSU guy, though, I just don't know if that's. That'd be.
Well, I didn't think about that.
That'd be a tough sell.
But when they ain't winning,
that's true.
And he flips the switch.
That is, I mean,
I could see
he does have some allies like the.
I could see him at Miami before I saw him at Oregon.
What's his? What's the playmaker? The playmaker's one of his. He's from the other side. He can wrestle that all in.
That'd be.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay. He makes them 10-0. You think they're talking about whether he was a menace at FSU?
No.
No.
No, but a bunch of people will be.
But how come everybody keeps swinging and missing down there at Miami? Why can't they find that magic that was obviously down there? The talent level's still down there. It's still down there.
South Florida?
Yeah. So why are they swinging and missing with the money they hired?
Are the money guys still down there, though?
The money guy. I don't think the money guys are still there.
They might not be.
I don't think.
A lot of time has passed.
You got to realize that the dirty secret that I don't think a lot of people want brought to light is where did some of that money in those 80s runs? What industry did some of that money come from? He says with quotation marks. Because if you've watched like Cocaine Cowboys on Netflix and stuff like that,
well, that's the same.
You understand what was going on in Miami in the 80s.
That's the same year Crockett and Tubbs was running them out of there. So
that's right.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they were any left down there to do that.
What I was going to say about Deion is I think one of the kickers for him is going to be, now that you're at a big-time school, and I mean, let's be honest, Colorado's won a national championship in the last 40 years, so you could qualify them as a,
they did it
high-profile program.
Once upon a time.
Who do you bring in? You have to make a splash with the staff, too, and as Deion Sanders has enough clout to get some guys to come to Colorado. You ain't getting high-profile guys to Jackson State because there's no money to pay them.
Yeah.
But Colorado, if they're willing to open the checkbook for Prime, they're willing to open the checkbook for guys he brings. And I'll tell you somebody who popped to my mind immediately because he's recently been let go and he is a dadgum genius on his side of the ball. What about a guy like Scott Frost?
Yeah. Who wouldn't want to live in Denver?
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice area out there. It's not like you're living in the in the sticks.
I know somebody else is living in Denver now. I don't think he has any interest in coaching college, but
you're going to try to bring Peyton back into the college.
I'm just saying,
all
he's
the
there.
stuff he's got to do, he ain't got time to coach.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he wants to coach college. But
He don't need to.
he's there.
He don't need nobody to sit up there and guess at him why he called that play.
You don't think he couldn't?
I don't think he wants to be part of that.
But you could see Dion just going down the roster of guys that he knows. Hey, Ray, why don't you come coach defense with me here at Colorado for a couple of years? I know you ain't doing anything. Hey, Ed, Dion knows everybody, and there are enough guys.
Yes, he could get some of those people to take a moment and do that.
And I guarantee you're looking at if you're
there again, Rusty and Scott, it's a job.
It is.
You're asking maybe some of those to come back and do a job, and maybe they ain't doing anything.
How many? But how many kids do you think? How many radars did Colorado instantly pop up on when that hire was announced? How many kids in America went, huh?
Well, his name kept circling a little bit, whether it was any truth around that Auburn job. I don't know that Auburn ever gave him.
He got the number one recruit, last year to Jackson State.
Yeah. Kid out of Collins Hill, Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I mean,
You think Auburn really had him on the list?
Oh, I think he was on the list. I don't know.
It would have took.
I want to know.
It would have took Lane and.
I want to know where the Kiffin.
To turn them down.
I want to know where the Kiffin thing. I think there was more to that than just somebody saying they were looking at him and then him just deciding that he wasn't. I don't think that would have leaked out there if he didn't go entertain. I think he went and entertained an offer.
Real high on
I'm sure he probably talked to him and then he leveraged it against an offer at Ole Miss to get more money out of it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think about that Ole Miss job ever being in top 10 paying jobs. Well, I think Lane Kiffin has it in that club now, and then some.
Well, and that's you another guy right there that you look at him and you think, what's his end game? Where is his? What's his final? Is his final goal? Is he hoping to one day be back at USC? Especially with them making the moves they're making, that kind of thing. Is he holding out to be one of the guys that goes after that job at Alabama when Saban steps down?
I do think that, barring any scars on his resume prior to that, I think that is a job he takes, and I think it's a job that he would get offered, barring he ain't done anything stupid before then.
Yeah.
Especially if he turns around and he beats Alabama here in the next
if he
years.
puts a couple of those in the
the one thing you can say about the guy is, number one, he's an offensive mastermind,
and
he's a hell of a recruiter.
He's also proven he can be a head coach. He doesn't just have to be a coordinator. He proves he's been a head
I'm just
coach.
curious to see.
Now, I will say this: that team started with a lighter schedule, got out there 6-0, and ran into the harder part of their schedule.
And that happens. Kentucky has that crap happen almost every year. They start out with a light schedule, and then they'll be 6-0, 5-0, and then they hit the meat, and we're
7-0, and we're ranked 9th,
and we ain't played nobody. It happens year in and year out. And I think there are. Now, I'll tell you a school.
And I did hear a rumor about Leach was considering retiring.
Now, I'll tell you a school that Dion would look at in the SEC. I think he'd consider Florida.
Oh, well, why wouldn't he consider Florida? That's a mecca, and right now, I guess, Florida's actually in next year's recruiting. Scott, if I saw this correctly, 4th in the country. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. But we know that you can be 4th in the country and be 40 miles away from that campus, too.
How much is recruiting now, though, going to be even considered? Because, get back to transfer portal again, I've heard stories that some of these colleges are only going to recruit 1 or 2 kids in high school.
I saw an article on that the other day about seniors and their unknownness because of the transfer portal.
It's hurting high school recruiting. It's hurting it so bad. But if you're an 17, 18-year-old high school senior who is a good player, but you can't compete with a guy that's already 20, 21 years old that's been in weight programs and been in college offenses or defenses for 2 or 3 years. If a college is going to take one or the other,
well,
you want the guy that's going to help you now, or do you want the guy that might help you in the future?
Well, and we also know in the climate that we're in now that coaches don't get 3 and 4 years.
Nope. No, there's too much pressure on coaches to win now.
And part of that flipping the switch, somebody told me today that Alabama already had 17 kids leaving their program. Now, Scott, they don't recruit 3-stars at Bama. That means there's 17 4 and 5 stars, maybe a bunch of 4 stars. So they may tend to feel it harder than a school over here that's got 12 guys leaving if they were all 3 stars.
Yeah, honestly, I don't like the transfer portal. I get it. I mean, if the coaches are allowed to go wherever they want to go, the players should be allowed wherever they're. I get that. But as somebody who has loved college football for nearly 45, 50 years, between that, name, image, and likeness, and again, I'm all for these kids getting whatever they can get for as much money as they bring into these schools. But it's killing college football.
Now you know what all us college basketball fans have been going through for the last 15, 18 years with one and done.
Yeah. That's the dumbest thing too. Just
let them go.
Let them go.
I mean, that's the thing is, in my youth, you got to fall in love with teams because you had them for 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. You had guys that just, as much as half of America hates Christian Laettner, Duke fans still talk about that man like he walked on water because for 4 years he was the best thing in college basketball.
Yeah.
Because you got to experience and college football. You think about it, Scott. When we were, and Rob too. Obviously you're a little bit older than us, but when we were all younger, your favorite college football players never left. They would leave after their junior year. Now you got guys leaving after freshman and sophomore years.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about the quarterback that was up for a Heisman at Tennessee. He leaves Virginia Tech because they say he's not good enough, and Tennessee's talking about Heisman.
Yeah. I remember in the 80s watching Big East basketball, Georgetown, Syracuse, St. John's, and it was so good because those teams that, Chris Mullen played on, those teams that Patrick Ewing played on.
Chris Mullen.
All those guys, they were there for 2 or 3 years, and they built up a rivalry for 2 or 3 years, and those games were outstanding. Now, I remember Carmelo Anthony came to Syracuse. He was there 1 year.
Well,
he was gone.
And Rusty's team, Rusty, I heard this the other day, and this is for next year, I think, that the top 8 players coming out of high school, the top 8, at Kentucky's got 4 commitments out of them.
I'm sure they do.
I know they got 3. 2 are from the same school.
Well, oh really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Camden, New Jersey.
In the last 10 or 15 years, it's been damn near every year that we've had them. The problem is now is that it's a different era of kid.
Hey, you can't knock his recruiting. But I'm going to knock where those national championships are when these guys are standing
because
there.
They don't play together.
No time to develop any chemistry.
The last time Kentucky had a team that really had chemistry was that 3-year stretch where they won the title in 12 and finished runner-up in 13 and 14. Or they finished runner-up in 13 and finished out the semifinals in 14. Those teams were
the best team they had, and they
chemistry.
Didn't win it when they could run 2 squads in, 2 5-man squads in there that better than anybody else got in the country.
The year that they went undefeated until they got a hold of Wisconsin in the semifinals.
They should never lost that.
Should have never lost that. Well, guys, that's going to do a full Fast and Furious hour for us, as it usually is when we get on topic and get to rolling.
And happy belated birthday, Rob.
Yes.
Well, it is belated now.
Well, yeah.
Well, you thought we forgot. You snuck your way out of here the other night without us getting to say happy birthday. It'd be remiss without saying happy birthday to my personal hero, my dad. Was the first, and happy birthday to my wife's, whose was on Saturday. So got a lot of catching up to do, and Little Bit's birthday's coming up on the 11th. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning in with us tonight. We appreciate everything that you guys do. We're glad to have you with us. Y'all take it easy, and we'll talk to you next week.